side of the couple over the past few months, and set up dinner a few weeks ago, and we had dinner with them, and really she kind of set it up on a tee for me to be able to look at the male side of the equation and say, hey, the things that you guys are going through right now, have you gotten out of the practice of being a part of a community? And you need to, don't do it for yourself if you don't want to, but do it for your wife. And then they have showed up consistently since that dinner, and I've already been watching what God's doing in them. But it's because she was consistent in the relationship that allowed that to happen and allowed those things to continue. So
I like him.
Man. Seriously? This is probably not as loving as probably someone should say it, but isn't that why he saved us? Not to get our 6 kumbaya Christian friends and do life with them and checks the box. It was to actually be a light in simmering lights or in dark lives and allow our light to shine. Go into the world and preach the gospel and make disciples, right? Not to go just hang out with disciples and just check the box. It's about, Lord, let my life be a light and a road. He kind of messed up state. He wants to use people who are available. And I think it's really cool. Really cool. I mean, again, my atheist guy, I literally was like, Lord, that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, seriously? And he's like, well, you asked and you were available. Yes, Nathan?
While we're sharing wins,
Yes.
one of my really awesome students, Micah Fickle, has been really loving on a friend. He and a couple of other students, they've been inviting her, they've been really intentional with her, and she, I think 3 weeks ago, accepted Jesus.
Come on, church, seriously? You're all white people. Get some. Anyway, yes, Nathan.
And the way she talks about Jesus, she would have known him for the last 40 years, but that's impossible because she's like 16. It's pretty awesome to see what he's doing in her life. And
Amen.
that's all due to inviting and consistency. And I mean, her first time being at our church, at least, was the first time we opened our doors for youth group after the virus.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, really cool.
I want to say thank you to Nate, and then we'll go to Bob and Andrea. Nate could have, be very careful how I say this, because I'm caught between groups here in the area here, left and right. Nate could have went, hey, it's just easier to not, because it will remove the stress. But he didn't. It's like, how can we find a way? We're not a hospital. We're not trying to be, right? We're not. But Nate's like, hey, Rob, I've practiced it at school. We're practicing. I can make this work to one, help as many parents as possible feel as safe as possible to allow their kids to be a part of youth. And so, Nathan, thank you so much for not taking the easy way out, but contending to live with the tension of kind of trying to live on, kind of not live on both sides. But you know what I mean, Nate, to have to kind of figure out how to minister and connect with both sides and not just kind of chickening out and calling it good, sticking your head in the sand. Hopefully, like in 2057, we'll go back to church. You know, so thank you so much, Nathan. Mr. Bob, and then Andrea. Man.
Not everybody here as a husband is doing things, and I can't call it out, but I'm just saying, be encouraged that the men are starting to get it. And, for a while there, I got to be honest, I was thinking that I had to count slowed down and just started, just gathering, just friendships with, being organically and stuff. And then I just start hearing their hearts, and they all have different things that they want to do for you as wives and for their community and stuff. So I'm just encouraged by that. I want to spread that encouragement to you wives that have husbands in the church.
Adam, can you get 120 cups of coffee, please? Andrea.
Shout out to Nate, who called the other day and has a group of youth leaders and youth group students who want to support bringing back the preteen class at Hughes Church. And just completely, they've already got all the volunteers for it.
Whoop, whoop! Come on. We could go all night, and you should, and I would encourage you, share your wins. It is a battle. It is a warfare that we are in. You think, people are preoccupied with our politics? Just go above the clouds and check the heavenly warfare out and see the big fight. This fight down here is minuscule to the fight that's going on in the heavenlies for the souls of people who, if Jesus came back today, even nice people would instantaneously be separated for Christ's presence forever. I was chatting with somebody the other day, and they were talking to me about the bottomless pit in hell. I don't know if you like falling. He does, because he jumps out of airplanes and all that silly stuff. But most people don't like falling, and they were talking about that concept of the bottomless pit in hell, that you could fall forever. And the separation from Christ, and there's the sharing of all the reality of what is coming for those who do not have a personal relationship with Christ. Nathan, that young lady, will never know what it's like to be separated from Christ. She'll never have to deal with the reality of that. Hey, Mandy, come on up here, young lady, would you, and talk to us, because we want to catch this. Mandy, woo, woo. Hey, we're trying to honor all of you, and we're not trying to be Nazis about it, but we actually are. Not really in one sense, but we're trying to serve our church. Pastor Joe just mentioned it in our lead team. If the trend keeps going, we're going to have to make some changes and choices service-wise, and you'll hear about one in a minute, but ultimately having to do some here. But we want to try and prepare for that. And we want to do like Andrea did with her team, a lead up, and Dawn and Caitlin and Andy, a lead up into this Sunday made it really successful. So we want to talk about the same process, and Mandy wants to run over something with us. So help her distribute this information amongst the people you serve with, if you could.
So I'm going to talk about something that I know is everybody's favorite, but event registrations. People are starting to come out of isolation, and events are starting to continue to happen. So because we had such a long break where we didn't have any events, there was no need for event registration or reserving something on the calendar or anything like that. But now we're getting to the place where I had so many events this last week that I couldn't even get to all of them in the last week, as far as like promoting them, making a registration for them, all of that. So if you have an event, like if you lead a ministry like young adults, youth, women's Bible study, men's ministry, if you want to do like an all-church event or anything like that, like a registration has to be filled out from our registration page. And it's the ministry link that you reserve the building on. If you have an off-site event, then you have to go on there and just talk about what your event is so that we can promote it on our webpage and our app. So, like I heard there's a pumpkin patch youth event.
Yeah.
Well, I have two youth kids, one youth kid, one youth leader, so I heard about it, which is good. They told me, Nate. They told me. That's actually pretty good.
But you didn't.
But for kids who don't come to the youth group, we want to have that on the website and the app, so that if new people wanted to come, they see that that's on there, and then they can come. So if you guys need the link, I am going to email it out tomorrow. And then just to get back in the habit of doing that, if like the women's Bible study starts a new study and we want that promoted, please fill out a link, and then we will make sure we refresh the webpage. because we want to give everyone an opportunity to attend the events or join a life group or send their kid to a youth event or just, all of those things. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Adam, is there anything else you want to speak to in reference to kids ministry? We got everything good, Andrea? Adam? Is there anything specific you want to let us know? I mean, obviously, as we move forward, just encourage people you talk to and engage people to come serve once a month somewhere. Right now, one of our big needs is children's ministry because we're expanding it, and we will be here expanding something else, and you'll hear about it in a minute. And so, Mrs. Crystal, would you come on up here, young lady, and talk to us? Whoop, whoop! Oh, and that microphone's good.
It's very clean, very, very clean. All right. What do you, Ogden? Okay. well, there's also the community center, so I didn't know. All right, Ogden campus. We are looking to relaunch inside the building on October 25th at 5 p.m. We feel like the evening services have served the community, served the neighborhood, served the people that we are looking to reach. So the services will continue the same way that we've been holding them outside, minus the grilled hot dogs. So, meaning it will be a 1-hour service. It will be 3 worship songs, a 25-minute message, family room, family style is what the service is going to look like. So that's the heartbeat behind it, is that we want to make it as easy and comfortable as for anybody to come in. We love the idea of 5 o'clock because our LDS friends can come, our friends that go to other churches can come, our friends that stay out late on Saturdays can come. And then that will give time for families to go home, get kids to bed, but also we have a heart as COVID restrictions lift, because we believe Jesus will someday, COVID will be gone, or at least contained. We'll share a meal together after service is the heart behind it. So, questions on that?
That's my question.
That's your question. Okay, thoughts? Yes. Yes, Carly. I know he does. I know he does. He and Asher double fisting it on Sunday. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And then give us a synopsis on NRC.
Okay. The community center. I'm like, what can I talk about? We met with the lawyer. We started the paperwork. God gave us the most incredible lawyer on the planet. He is a quarter of the price of any other attorney because he has a consulting group that specializes in this, and he's a believer. And God's favor has just been incredible over some of these things. He also gave us someone that's going to help build our website for very inexpensive. His hand is just over everything. The board is coming together. What am I missing? Alan, James, anything? That's it, pretty much. Okay. Yeah, things are happening, and they might be happening quicker than we even thought possible, so that's really cool too. We're really excited.
And we want to try and, when we're making shifts or changes, we want to try and bring it here first of all. So obviously, Crystal will be taking that news of the Ogden campus with Adam and his team, and kind of we'll be dispersing it and letting people know. We want you to know. We're moving into a season where lots of events are coming up, and so we're kind of working through the idea as a lead team. Someone asked me here a few days ago, so I just want to let you guys know we're probably not going to have a Thanksgiving dinner this year. at church out of respect for just all the COVID restrictions, all the stuff goes on, because it's a potluck and people bring food and all the different things that go with it. We're working on different events that people want to have at the church, and they're kind of working out a way to serve people the best way we can. But we also want to live in the middle ground, not left or right, but live in the middle. And so me being over the Thanksgiving thing, I made an executive decision at lead team today with my lead team's wisdom that we're going to cancel our Thanksgiving dinner just out of respect for people in reference to all the COVID stuff that's going on. And we'll continue to do that as best we can. Jackie's kind of interacting with the city right now to see what that might look like. We serve the Uinta City at Christmas as a missions outreach blessing to them, and so she's interacting with the mayor and the team to see if that's even possible, and then how we could meet all the criteria that kind of comes with it. So we'll kind of let you know as we go forward in reference to that. My question would be this, and I say it from a loving place, hopefully, is as we walk into this new season, you're all engaged with different leaders, and we do this once a month on the first Wednesday of every month for an hour. I don't think it's a big ask, but again, I think we learn together doing, and we learn together listening. And so I just encourage the different leaders that you're interacting with, that you would encourage them to make this a part of our journey as we kind of fall forward and walk forward. Hey, I want to play you a song for Joe for about a minute and a half of it, if you wouldn't mind. Just sit back, close your eyes. You'll recognize it instantaneously, but just sit back and listen. A minute and a half or so, Joe, whatever you feel is appropriate. Thank you.
Grand earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of his voice, and seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well. It is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust.
Can you imagine everything in your life is going really well? You're happily married. You have 5 beautiful children. At the pinnacle of your career, you've even managed to squirrel kind of away enough money to provide for your family, for everyone and every need that they would ever literally need. Under circumstances like these, it's really easy to say, it is well with my soul. But what if tragedy strikes? Not once, but multiple times. What if the golden life, your ticket to Easy Street, as it were, was all of a sudden taken away in a blink of an eye and no cause of your own? Exactly what happened to Horatio Spafford, the man who wrote one of the most soul-stirring hymns in all of the Christian hymnal, "It is well with my soul." Horatio was a successful lawyer in Chicago who invested heavily in the real estate market on the shore of Lake Michigan. He was a prosperous man, a devout husband and a father, and a devout Christian. But in 1870, a series of events began to turn his life upside down and inside out. Horatio and Anna's only son, Horatio Jr., died of scarlet fever at the tender age of 4. The following year, while still mourning the loss of their son, every single one of Horatio's investments were lost in the Great Chicago Fire. A few years later, aware of this toll, the events that had taken on his wife and his 4 daughters left, Horatio decided to take the family on a holiday to England, where they accompanied their friend, the most famous evangelist D.L. Moody, on his next crusade. Shortly after, before they were set to sail, a last-minute business situation developed and threatened to derail their trip. So Horatio persuaded his wife to go ahead, saying he would follow along shortly. In November 1873, Anna and the girls boarded the French ship Val de Havre. 4 days into the transatlantic journey, it hit an ironclad vessel, and the Val de Havre sunk in 12 minutes, taking with her the lives of 226 of its passengers. It was the worst disaster in Navy history until the sinking of HMS Titanic 40 years later. 7 days later, when the survivors had reached Cardiff, Wales, Spafford received a brief 6-word telegram from his wife. "Saved alone, what shall I do?" As he rushed to be with his grieving wife, the captain of the ship he was traveling on let the passengers know they were nearing the site where the ship had sunk. It is at this point that he penned the incredible hymn, "It is well with my soul." Can I share with you a quick thought, hopefully to encourage you as we walk into this next season? In all the busyness and the confusion, the frustration, and the uncertainty of ever-changing, out-of-control circumstances that seem to change every single day and seem to adjust every single day, I've been finding this journey in myself kind of walking through King David's life. And the Lord's been walking me through this experience of just these exact moments for me in life. It's found in 1 Samuel 30, 1 through 4, 6, and then 8. It says this: 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home at their town of Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made a raid into Negev and Ziklag. They had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. They had carried off all the women and children, everyone else, but without killing anyone. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. That's a lot of crying. And then it says this: David was now in great danger because all his men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, and they began their wives, and they began to think about stoning him. You could say every ever-changing circumstances of uncertainty instantaneously hit David in a situation and circumstance like we end up with today. David had 2 choices, you could say. Let the situation dictate his response, or he could lean into something different in a different direction. It goes on to say, but David found strength. He encouraged himself, other versions say, in his own most holy faith in the Lord his God. Just like Horatio must have had to do as he arrived at the point where his daughters had drowned. He'd had a choice to make. Either I fall into despair and freak out and jump out of a window and call God everything, or whatever it is that we do because it didn't go my way, or you take 2 steps back as Horatio did and as David probably did in that moment. See, everybody else was against David. No one was encouraging him. He didn't have the worship team. He didn't have the prayer team. He didn't have the burn. He didn't have whatever it was that we kind of get through women's retreat. He didn't have Sunday morning in that moment. Everybody around him was against him. In that moment, David, this is kind of creatively, David pushed back from the table, took a deep breath, and then made a decision. It says, why is it important to find our strength in the Lord? Because when your back's against the wall and you find yourself trapped in a corner and everything's going against you, what you do next in that moment says a lot about who we are and where we're at in our relationship with Jesus. Again, Horatio really could have written the same as well with my soul when he had everything, which is a Western thing, right? Jesus is a sugar daddy. Everything should go wonderful. He should just make everything fall in place. It should be easy. Should never be any problems in my life or my family, all that sort of stuff. And yet, that's not what God says. When trials and tribulations come, don't lose heart. I think in this season, as we move into this season coming back out of COVID, we're dealing with people being decision weary. We're dealing with people being nervous and fragile and fearful and anxious and uncertain and uncomfortable because everything's moving and everything's shifting and everything's not in place and routines are out of order, etc., etc., etc. We change decisions every day. CDC or whoever it is, they make decisions and change it a week later and a week later and a week later. And all these people are deciding and walking and everything's just spinning and swirling as it was for David in that moment. But it says David found strength in the Lord his God. My encouragement to you as we move out of this season into a new one, what does it look like for us to find strength in the Lord our God? Void of all the external stimulants that aren't bad. Carly was right. One of the best ladies' retreats we've done. Those who chose to come got blessed. Those who didn't. Those who chose to come experienced God in a fresh way in the midst of a swirling circumstance in our culture. And in the moment of ladies' retreat, there was this peace and this quiet and this contentment and this engagement with Jesus. And I think so often we go, how do I find myself? How do I stir myself up in my own most holy faith? And why would you do that? I love the story. It says David stirred himself up in his own most holy faith. Why? Because the next step he took, it says, then David asked the Pope, or David asked President Trump, or David asked President Biden to cover both bases, or David asked the mayor, or David asked the police chief, or David asked the 501, or David asked the NASDAQ, or no, it says David asked the Lord. Or what should I do in this circumstance where everything is swirling and everybody wants to stone me and nothing's seemingly going right in this moment? What would you have me do? So David pushes back from the table, takes a deep breath, makes a decision either to lean into the circumstance or lean into somebody else. And David, in his wisdom, leans into somebody else and he finds his faith. He stirs himself up in his faith. Why? So he can go step into the presence of the Lord. Should I chase after these band of raiders? Will I catch them? And the Lord told him, yes, go after them. And you will surely recover everything that was taken from you. I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know how your family's. I don't know how your friends are feeling, your work colleagues are feeling. I just know people are stressed out. People are literally on edge. They flip out at anything. They lose their cool at anything. They just kind of like, oh my goodness. And people are panicked about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen in November. And they're just literally frazzled by all of this. I mean, we had 5 months of just upheaval of all life, and then we came out of it into this election system and election moment and all the stuff that's happening and all the stuff on Facebook and all the junk and the poison and the garbage and the disrespect and the dishonor. Our country is in turmoil. But Jesus isn't. He's not even frazzled by it at all. And I would encourage you in this season, it's wonderful to be in church. It's wonderful to have women's retreat. It's wonderful to have prayer meetings. It's wonderful to have worship nights. It's wonderful to have burn. It's wonderful to have all that stuff. But I wonder if all that stuff was stripped away. Would we have the wherewithal to push back from the table, pause for a second and take a deep breath, and go, of all the choices I've got of where I should lean and where I should draw stuff from, I'm actually going to choose to encourage myself in my own most holy faith. Why? So I can step in a direction and step into His presence and go, Lord, what would you have me do in this moment? How would you have me respond? How would you have me react? How would you have me process what's going on? As we walk out this next season, my question to all of us would be this. When things maybe don't go our way, hopefully it's not the loss of your family, right? No one wants that to happen. But maybe it's people turning against you or people misunderstanding what you're saying or what's going on. Andrea and the children's team, I mean, the most, nervous and cautious and careful person in the world is a mama bear. And she should be. That's a gift that God's given a mama bear. is to take care of her cubs and cublets, right? I mean, that's what she's there for. And so you got Andrea and them, Henry would do Adam and his team, and Andrea and them, the very best way to help us move forward. And so our best intentions sometimes can get misunderstood. You know, I shot with something the other day, and this is not in any way, but it was in this short a window. And this is 30 seconds of my world. This short a window, there was person A and there was person B. And person A came and said, Rob, this is just wrong. And I said, what's up? They said, people are not wearing enough masks. And just went off. And I said, just get it out. Just get it all out. No problem whatsoever. And then the same little tiny window, person B came and said, Rob, people are wearing too many masks. We're not functioning enough by faith, and gave me this whole other spiel. And so I'm like, oh, Lord, help. And that whole idea of, Lord, how do I get to a place where I want to comfort both people? And so we'll do the best of intentions, and we'll do stuff, but people, what happens when you find yourself in a place where people misunderstand what you're saying with the best heart you have, and they just, because of where they're at, they just kind of misunderstand, and you find yourself in that place. People are sometimes fearful and they're tired. Maybe like David's men to him. In those moments when all of a sudden our circumstances change and things don't go our way, which way and what we choose to lean into is so important in the next 30 seconds. Does it change our situation right away when we lean into Jesus? David's didn't. He leaned into God. He stirred himself up. He stepped into God's presence. God says, go get them and you'll get them back. But he still had to deal with men who were upset still because they didn't have they had to go get them. And so they're on a journey of moving in the right direction. And we're on a journey as a church and as people of moving in a direction to help people in this season. Can I encourage you that the stories about Horatio and David are incredibly reminders that in the middle of a changing moment, Horatio and David are aware enough, as it were, to push back from the table, take a deep breath, and pause for a second. You see, when there's no one else around to encourage us, what we do right now is really important. See, what we'll do a lot of times, as David did in a moment of pressure, he leant back on maybe what was practiced and prioritized in the past. Because it brings to the surface what happens when things are under pressure in the present moment you find yourself in. I don't have to tell you what this is. That's amazing. It's actually toothpaste. But when you and I are placed under pressure in this 6th season, what's in us is what will actually come out. Not what we wish would come out, not what we hope would come out, not that we like flip a coin and say, oh my goodness, no, what's actually inside of it, what was actually inside of David in that moment when everyone else was against him and it was pushing in on him. He pushed back from the table, took a deep breath, decided to encourage himself in his own personal, most holy faith. Why? So he could step into God's presence and get direction. See, good habits go a long way when we really need them. In our finances, in our emotional energy, in our faith, in our patience, in our long suffering, in our head, in our heart. The habits, things that we form before the pressure, allows us to move in the right direction in the pressure. What habits are you and I investing in, streamlining and holding on to in preparation that we may need to use as we move into this next season? I know you all probably do this, but I want to encourage you. Do you prioritize time with Jesus on a regular basis, that in your calendar it's marked in red? That's literally life-threatening if you don't? That's religious. No, actually it's not. A whole bunch of people watch CNN and Fox and everything else for hours. Every day, flipping on, every day, flipping on, every flipping on. Hey, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. And regardless of what side you're on, one of my friends helped me, gave me some addresses for some balanced news, because regardless of which one they're out of balance. But yet we feed ourselves every single day with stuff that drives us into the day. My encouragement as an influencer, because that's what you are, is what you take in is what you and I get to give out. And when we're under pressure, what's in you is actually what will come out. What's actually been placed in you before the pressure's applied will come out as we move into this next season. And this is not political. Please, please, please hear me. Between now and November 5th or whatever it is, there's going to be a lot of pressure applied to all of us to say and do things and take sides. And the only side we take is His. The only stance we take is one of humility. The only things we say is life-giving words that bring life to people and not take it from them. My wife said something at a women's retreat that I thought was really kind of interesting. She said, have you ever, any of you guys met President Trump? That maybe if you had met him in person, maybe you might give him some grace. Maybe as we meet Jesus in person, we realize He gave everybody grace. That when we get pressed, what comes out of us in this season as we walk forward is toothpaste and not something else. This is for married couples, and this is my 10 pence worth, and you can see Adam afterwards, and he can fix it, because this is, I'm in your face. If you're married, I don't know if I can say this, but Adam can help me fix it. In this next season, as we walk into this storm, because there's a storm coming, if you're married, I demand that you date your spouse before you do ministry. I demand that you date your spouse. If you're not dating your spouse now, you might want to think that your time is allocated inappropriately and out of balance. Single people, not just for married people, but you need to choose who you're going to hang with. In this next season, you're going to have to choose people who call you up to greater things and deeper things and wider things and broader things in Jesus, and not people that go, yeah, just skip it. You have to find people that will call you to a higher place in your relationship with Jesus. And as a married couple, and I can't do this, but I will. I demand that you date your spouse. I demand that you well, have no time. Find the time. That was what we did pre-COVID. Our kids are so busy and they're so scheduled and they have to have 19 sports and it has to happen, and my work's so busy and I do 5,000 hours, whatever it is. We're post-COVID now. And we're not back in it as a couple going into this next season so you can breathe and step back. You have to date your spouse. And single people, you have to find someone who'll call you to a higher level. Please don't find somebody who'll settle for second best and go, hey, it's good, let's just chill and stay here. Nathan, thank you so much for going all in with our young people. Thank you so much for caring about the next generation, to allow yourself to be pressed on both sides, but to give young people a chance to experience Jesus. And she did, Nathan, and she'll never experience hell because of you. She'll never experience what it means to be separate from Jesus because you're willing to take the pressure, Nathan, and not take the easy way out. What are we doing as people as you go forward? Find somebody who will inspire you to go to a new level. But couples, I demand you date your spouse. If you're not, it's the whole marriage seminar. Yeah, but I need the money. Then get rid of your debt. Get rid of your debt. Sell things. I like the truck. Okay, get a beater. The debt makes me work 70,000 hours a week. Get rid of your debt so you can love your spouse. Because in this next season, we have to have someone who's with us and for us. As David had this intimate relationship so he could take 2 steps back and breathe, it literally changed and transformed his life. See, we're all called to give from our abundance, not from our lack. We're called to give from our abundance, not living on the edge and there'd be a spigot on the bottom of this where it's just dribbling out and we just have enough. We're called to take the lid off and let it overflow from a place of abundance. Why is it important? Well, because the habit that David had cultivated took him to an incredible place, right in the presence of God, in the middle of hell breaking loose. And then it said, as I said earlier, then David asked the Lord, shall I chase after the band of raiders? In the midst of a storm, David got instructions of exactly what to do. The storm didn't distract him. What the storm was people. It didn't distract him because of the deep stirring of his faith. He was a step into God's presence and get instructions. In closing, guys, what habits do you need to strengthen and protect as we move into this next season? And what habits do you need to maybe start in this new season? And what habits do you need to maybe stay away from in this next season? The young man that I led to the Lord, or the Lord led to him in the car, I just talked about Jesus with him. I asked his permission if I could share it. So he put it on Facebook. He wrote a whole book on Facebook and told all his atheist friends, I found Jesus! I found Jesus! And we were talking. I said, so how'd you get here? And he said, Rob, I had a bad habit that I didn't realize I had to give up. He's been married for 10 years. He has 2 children. He used to play video games 4 to 6 hours a day. And he wondered why his marriage was failing. So a habit he gave up like right away when he went home that night is he unplugged all his game stuff and put it away. And his ex-wife-to-be was like, "You did what?" He goes, "Yep, it's unplugged. Put it away. I'm going to sell it and give it away." And she was like, "What are you smoking? Like, seriously?" He goes, "Yeah. I got my life straightened up, and one of the things that had to break was an old habit that was robbing me of times of doing the right things I should have been doing, which was loving you and loving our children." I'm like, all this happened in 24 hours? Like, seriously, Drew? He's like, "Yep." I went right home. I was like, wow. So in us, what habits do you need to strengthen and protect as we move into this new season? What habits do you need to maybe start afresh in this new season? What habits do you need to stay away from in this new season? And then here's a question for you. Who's helping you get there? Who's helping you get to that new place that God's calling you to? Who are you going to invite into your life to take that journey with you and do experience it? You guys are making a huge difference in people's lives. Our team, our influencers are making a huge difference in people's lives. And I'm not a kind of overselling it, but the cause of the church is to see lost people discover Jesus and find people released in who they are in Jesus. I mean, Crystal was chatting to me this afternoon about some people who are stepping in to kind of help us in this next season. I seriously had goosebumps. I was like, what do I need to do? How can I help? What do we do next? But Crystal's not making her arm. Like Jesus stood in, is it 8, Adam, the last one of the series in Chosen? Is there 8 of them or 9? Okay, 8, thank you. In the 8th one, Jesus didn't make Nicodemus follow him. He just invited him to. And you see the brokenness of a man who was on the verge of exploding into a whole new life of experience, of intimacy and closeness and goosebumps and all the rest of the stuff. And because of cultural pressure, he said no. He said no. So we're not going to make anybody. No, God's not going to make anybody. But you guys have got us to this point, and it's amazing what's happening from our kids. Nathan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inspiring and encouraging young people to take our preteens and to pour Jesus into them on a Sunday morning. I mean, that's stretching, and it's scary, and it's risky, and it's costly. Chatting to Zaina when I was leaving, we were finishing up and leaving. I drove her back to the church because we went to the pre-dedication thing, and we're driving back in the car. And I'm like, and she's sitting next to me, and I can feel her looking at me. I look over at her, and she's like, like, "Rob, I am exhausted." I'm like, "Yeah, so am I, Zaina." Wasn't that the coolest experience in the world? Yeah, there's a cost to the gospel. There's a cost to doing what we do. There's a cost to stretching. There's a cost to creating opportunity. There's a cost. It's never going to be easy. We just have to decide where we're going to invest our energy sometimes. We don't want to burn anybody out. We're not going to do that. Adam's done an amazing job of encouraging people, hey, find somewhere to serve once a month, right? I mean, that's that constant. Our cultural words is don't serve every week. Because remember when I came here, some of the people were frightened because they'd served for 10 years and never had a break. And I'm like, what? Never had a break. That was their drudgery. And the truth of the matter, you could see it. It was another, and I'm like, dude, we don't do that. I'll play spoons if we have to. I'm serious. I'll put music on the TV and we'll do worship on the TV if that's what it takes for us to find a rhythm and a natural balance. We'll do it. So come on this journey with us. Be like David. Push back from the table. Take a deep breath. And then stir yourself up in your own personal, most holy faith as we walk through this season of turmoil and unsettledness that we're going to face as a church, not just Crossroads, but as a church, as a nation, a church across the world, especially the church in the U.S., but across the world, there's a challenging time coming. But like in the midst of this, God wasn't freaked out. He knew exactly what he was going to tell David. He was just waiting for David to step into his presence. And while all hell was breaking loose around David, he was able enough to focus in what would you have me do? And God directed him accordingly. Adam, would you pray for us, please, buddy?
Lord, I don't know all that took place in that man's heart where he could say those words as well. But we know he did not get there on his own strength. And I do not pray to ever find myself in any circumstances near what he was in, but I do pray that every circumstance I do find myself in, I could say those words, even if sometimes it's just by faith and speaking it out loud, Lord, because I think you just meet us where our faith is, and I do pray all of us would be able to sing or say those words from this day to the end of our days, whenever that shall be, and we would commit ourselves to sacrificial living for the gospel of Jesus Christ so that others can come to have the hope that we have found and the assurance of that death is not final and you have victory over it. And we pray that all of our friends and families who have yet to come to faith would do so, Lord Jesus. That 2020 would be a year of salvation for many in the midst of all of this. So Jesus, we just thank you that you're a God who rescues and saves and delivers and walks with us through everything we find ourselves in. And we thank you for your great grace, Lord. Just give you our lives in Jesus' name. Amen.
Just quickly, what's a takeaway for somebody? What you hear, what's a takeaway, just quickly? Come on, your leaders, talk to me.
Go on a date.
Man, I wish more couples would, Shannon. I wish more couples would, to be honest.
Pressure, the real stuff's going to come out. We're under pressure, and so our relationship with Jesus, our time with him is crucial.
Amen. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Habits are super important.
I'm sorry, Suzanne.
Habits.
Man. What else?
Keep looking for the lost.
A lot of lost people are freaking out right now. A lot of people are absolutely at their wits' end. They're looking for an answer. Absolutely looking for answers. One more, anybody?
Equip the found. Equip the found.
Amen, buddy.
Let's see the other side of that coin.
Amen. Well, guys, again, if you have people in your teams, most power, we'll end on this, but the most powerful thing a person can do to grow their faith outside of having a personal relationship with Jesus is find somewhere to serve. Find somewhere to literally give away what God's given you. And we've got fantastic opportunities arising. Our Ogden campus is launching on Sunday evening here in 3 weeks. It's going to cost us, it's going to be tiring. Yes, it's costly to come here on a Sunday morning and serve. It just is. It's warfare, and you're making a difference in people's lives. Please help Mandy out. She's trying really hard to keep me in line in the office and to serve all of you. And so the whole registration process really helps us. We want to honor people, but we have to do it from a place that allows us to do it within the confines of where we're trying to honor the CDC stuff and all that goes with it. So the further in advance that we know in events and stuff, the more we can make sure we can make that happen if we can. Like, I can't make Thanksgiving happen. I was chatting with the team today, and then Mandy, I can't make it happen where I'm comfortable and safe in my own skin. So as in charge of it, I made an executive in to cancel it, but it's way in advance, so I was allowed to think it through. And so the registration process does exactly the same thing with us, is to help us have those conversations, to serve as many people as possible, but in as safe a way as possible. We're not fear-driven, we're faith-driven or drawn, but we use wisdom as well. Wisdom and faith combined helps us make a right decision. So thank you so much, guys. If you guys want to kind of skedaddle, I'll clean and spray the chairs down after you're gone, because I didn't ask you to do that, so I'll do that. So have a nice evening. Enjoy the snow when it comes. I was like, what?
Why are you saying that?
Because we're in Utah. We're in Utah and we're in October, so anything goes.
I need you to look at the calendar.
Thank you, guys.